My name is Maisie. I'm a shadow puppeteer. I'm in Philadelphia. I'm living in Philadelphia and based there right now and working in puppetry, art education, freelance here and there. I didn't always start out as a puppeteer or a shadow puppeteer, and I feel like very few of us do unless you're kind of born into it. I came into shadow puppetry first and haven't really left. I crossed over from the visual arts. I was trained as a printmaker here in Philadelphia, and I, from there, with wood cutting, lithography, dealing with graphic imagery, black and white, positive and negative spaces. I was also playing with cut paper silhouettes, cut paper design, and like the meditative quality of that, and the kind of the spiritual quality of working through a design very like slowly, meticulously, and in a way that will in the end kind of dazzle the eyes and play with light. It was getting already into the realm of performance and the realm of kind of like religious process of making an object that's more than just the object. And from there, I did find explicitly shadow puppets, wayang kulit in Indonesia, and then took it from there and just playing with it now as an individual like puppeteer and like making my original things that are informed, inspired, and in love of all of the puppetry that's come before me, and thinking critically about any kind of puppetry that could come afterwards too. There's a few stop motions in there as well. I think this is the last one. And if there are questions in the chat, Milo and I will be able to get to those as well. That was an example of some of my work, and I have some other ones in person to show you. Over here, if I can redirect your attention, the base that I'll introduce you to now is a simple like paper doll like one. This doesn't have any rods attached, but you can essentially add ones wherever you needed to. Put one on the head, put one on the body, and move her around like that, where you have she's painted black, so it makes me a little bit hard to see, but every single part, where it's the torso, the leg, the shins, they all move on their own. They're all fully articulated. And so this would be kind of hard to manipulate, but it would be extremely good for stop motion animation where it's not a live performance, but you're recording it. And so the puppet rods, the puppet strings are invisible. And this is also a foot where that's done in the same way. But this would also, with a little bit of practice, be something that has infinite potential of how it can move. And some people would say there's advantages and disadvantages to that when you design your puppet in the first place. Usually you have a role for it to play, you have a story for it to tell already in mind within your own context. So why not design the puppet to do exactly what you want, and maybe limit some of the ways it can move, or also just for a live performance limit puppet malfunction on stage, which I know is harrowing. So that's an example of very basic ones. Thank you. I like the foot too.
Looks like someone was wondering where the light source is from.
The light source is the one on my desk, or the one in the video.
I believe in the video.
The videos were, it was a combination of shadow puppets as they're seen being performed. So the light would be, everything's behind a screen, and then the light would be behind the screen as well. And the camera is facing it as if you're an audience. So it would go, I can just write on this screen, camera, and then puppet, my first stick figure of the year, and then puppeteer if we want to go that far. but it's all behind the screen. Oh, and the light source is actually in between puppet and puppeteer, because you want the shadow of the puppet to get cast on the screen, but you want you to be free of casting a shadow. So actually, that's a really good tip. And then just continuing on, here is a prop that was made with actual dowel rods, but just painted black. But it looks like a a telephone pole. It's got little wires on it, so they don't have to all be flat. Some of the puppets just moving through are created by adding things on with hot glue instead of just cutting out every single little shape. You can reduce your time, but also maybe just think more stream of thought by slapping things on, taking things off. It's not all that meticulous as it needs to be, and also using. Can you all see that? It's a tree with it's a puppet tree, but it's got real plastic bag in it, but it's just been cut out and stuck in the branches. And this is also like the onion bag stuff. Makes a really nice fence, like a construction fence. So always use what you have, or save anything that gives you an idea. You can also see that these aren't just cardboard. They were originally, I think they were soda containers. So using recycled objects when you can. You don't always have to. And then there's also puppets with rods on them that work through gravity. I'm sorry if my video is lagging. Okay. It looks a little bit jerky to me, but what you have here are wings that move with a pull string, and it's made from partially a corn pop cereal box. You have two joints that the wings pivot on, and you have the pull string that on the ends of the pivots, you have the wing on this side, and then you have the pull string creating that action, exerting energy for the motion to carry through. I can show you this in a little bit with the actual gravity, but it's all attached on a puppet rod. And essentially it's a blob for the bird and then two rectangular wings. And then the actual way that it looks like a bird was added later. All right. Is my video frozen for people, or is that just me?
It did freeze for a second, but it's moving now.
Okay, good. I know it's sorry for thanks for your patience there. Let me see if you can see what I mean a little bit more, where you really start with the stronger stuff, the cardboard base. Right here was the main part of the body, and then this bit of cardboard box was the bulk of the wing, but later on you add, again, you don't have to cut out everything, but you can add on later the part that would in the end really make it look like a wing. So that's just one other kind of quick and dirty, I think they call it, puppet mechanism, or puppet creation technique. I could just take that away and then we'd be able to use it, right? All right. So that's an example of a more simple lever in puppetry. You can pull it. And a little bit more complicated one that uses the same idea, but a higher number of levers would be this horse. Pegasus, pardon me, where the head can move independently, the body can move independently, and then when you actually move the levers, this one also wants to go, so stand up. The wing can move too. Let me see if I can get that. Oh, it was caught. There it goes. And that was part of the video that you saw. This guy's an old horse by now. It gets a little bit sticky and it wants to be put upright if the screen is right here. You'll put the puppet against the screen with the rods going perpendicular to the screen. And that is the ideal setup for, upright screen shadow puppetry, rather than on something like overhead where you'd have gravity holding it down to the bed like that. Okay. So that's.
Are your puppets cutouts or are they with a machine? They're very intricate.
They are so far all with cutout. I haven't needed to get a machine like a Cry-Cut yet so far, but never say never. It depends on what kind of projects will come later. That's a good question. Also, quick studio tour, because I think this is a good time for us to start gathering our supplies. I'm gonna do a little parade of your best supplies for today as we start making our own shadow puppets, and as we make them, I can give us a demonstration about how to get started with simple puppets. We have masking tape, blue masking tape, all your tape. We have puppet rods that can be straws. Bamboo skewers, like for the grill, work really, really well. Here's a smaller straw. It can also be wire. This was just maybe 18 gauge wire. I think once you get into hanger wire, that can be a little bit thick if your puppets are small. X-Acto knives are great. That is usually what I cut out with in addition to scissors. Your best pair of scissors, a hot glue gun for sticking things down fast, found objects that give off interesting light qualities. These are invaluable to have and save because you never know what you're going to need to look like it's floating. Also, string is great. We can get into this, but we can have a joint. If you can see that. A joint with string rather than your other joints that are going to be brads like these, which we were talking about before we started. But these are from any craft store or office supply store, and these are good for, I would say, if you are a very, very much beginner. They can help you move faster through your ideas, so you don't have to spend time worrying about how to make your joints, but just make your puppet for now. Hot glue. I recommend cutting down strips of paper to make limbs out of, so that you don't have to worry about cutting them out really intricately, but you just have like an arm or a leg next to a bigger piece that would be a body. So those are good things to start with. The actual material would be, manila folders are great. They're easy to cut with scissors, and but they also hold up and they're not, too floppy. So let's go ahead and get some of these, and I'm gonna get us started making a puppet. Do people have questions?
I do, Maisie. Could you
Okay,
tell us more about the string joint, how you made that?
sure, let's go over that now. I'm gonna back up a few steps to introduce the joint. I'm gonna introduce first my idea for you all. If you haven't noticed, I love birds and I love animals in general, but I'm gonna start with birds. I have a pigeon here because I was just thinking about pigeons. You know, living in Philadelphia, there's a lot of them. Um, I think in my mind's eye, okay, I know I want to make this character. I want to make this creature. What comes to mind? What angles come to mind if all I have are black and white to express it in? What would I need to tell the person so that they know instantly, oh, that's a pigeon? Or, you know, we'll be happy with that's a bird. Okay, so I've chosen a profile view, and it also has to do with if this is part of a larger play, a larger piece in your puppet theater. You know, which direction does it need to fly in? Does it need to go this way? Does it need to go that way? Does it go side to side, or does it even just like come forward and move backwards? That will all determine the design, the look of your character in silhouette for sure. And I had an idea that I would do this pigeon, and what I would like for it to move its wing, because that's what they do as I drive towards them, not by any malice. They fly away from me, so that is what I see pigeons doing the most. So I'm going to introduce this wing, and we're going to cut this out quickly. But I feel like I like showing y'all the process. So we have chosen, as you are thinking about something that you might want to do, we've chosen a character. We've chosen not just the character, but what do I need to know about it? Why is it a pigeon facing the right? Questions that will be important if you're making a larger piece, part of your dramaturgy, I guess. You're welcome to fact check my use of that word. I did not start out in theater, but we have a pigeon body. And really that could be it, because the wing's in here, but I want a wing to actually come out and flap. So I'm gonna add this wing here. And what I wanted to show you all, because it's gonna go about here with how I figure out where things are gonna go, how I'm going to joint this wing to, flap. Getting back to Lizzie's question about how to joint things with string. That looks good right about there. And all I've used so far is just marker or pencil on paper. You know, I would be tempted to just cut this out, right? Because that would complete the shape. But if I cut that out, there's nothing for me to attach it onto. So what you want to do is really extend it into that puppet body so you have plenty of overlap, because the joint's going to go about here. I'm going to guess it's about here, so that you get that full shape of the wing still, and you don't have to, compromise it further into the body, losing the drawing that you've done, but you've just accommodated for the bit that's going to overlap onto the body. And that's super important. I like to point that out because when I design that, I forget about that. And it'll save you an extra step. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna cut out our body part that will overlap and ultimately make our gesture. There's one more thing that we need to be mindful of, but I want to show you next, the joints with string. Making sure people have questions. Okay, we're good. And I know now we're falling into the rhythm of, we're gonna start making our own thing. So it's totally fine if you are enmeshed in that as we go along. And I have another invaluable tool that I like to use. Actually, don't do that, that's sharp. Is this is actually for bookbinding, but it's a tiny awl. But I like to put my wing right there, put the joint, the pivot point on that wing right there. You can also, what I will need to do anyway is use scissors to carefully poke a slightly larger hole. Because the string needs to go through it. And what essentially we're doing, going back to the whiteboard, with the manila board that we have, when we make a joint, we're attaching this piece to this piece, right? But if we turn it sideways, we essentially have something, what's attaching it is going through both pieces of paper, and then there's something stopping them from coming apart that's holding it to each other. And that would be, in the case of a string, that would be the knots on either end, a knot over here and a knot over here. If you are in shadow puppetry, you will see like coil clamps. So a coil is made, you're basically looking at two pieces of paper, bird's eye view, so they're flat right here. And then you want the joint to pass through this point and hold them to each other, right? And how much space in between here is depending on how loose you want them to be. So if they're really tight together, if they're held closer together, they're going to not move very well, which is good if you want things to stay put and have some natural friction. But if they're looser, they can really move freely, but they'll still be together, held by that joint. I hope that translated well over Zoom screen, because I feel like that's the hardest thing to talk about with jointing. But we're gonna make one of these with string instead of with a brad, because that's what happens with brads, is that the head of the brad keeps the paper on this side, and then when you poke it through, you open up the wings, and that forms another stop and fastens the paper together. There you go, silhouette. Here's the brad. But we're gonna use string. I have hemp and fun colors. And I would cut yourself enough that you can tie it well. And I'm gonna go through this a little bit faster so that we have enough work time. But don't forget to poke both holes. Both holes are poked so that you can always test it out Yeah. Works. You want to pass your string through, you have to poke it through both. If your hole, my hole was just big enough, it went right through. Like that. You want to knot it on one side, and for the first one, it doesn't matter where you knot it, but give yourself enough room. You want to knot it closer to the end of your string, so that I'm going to double knot mine to make a big knot head so it won't slip through the paper. And I've chosen like not thread, you know, like thicker string. Okay. There you go. You want to turn it over and do the same thing. So this one's pretty easy. The harder part is to get the knot as close as possible on top of the paper and not like, you know, an inch out from the puppet, because then it's like you don't really have a joint at all. But I think it's just practice. And we have all experience levels here, curiosity levels. So don't be worried if it's hard for you to do the first time. Oh. And then you want to snip the tails off if that's going to interfere with your puppet. But that, there you go, is a super simple joint. The hard part about these is that some other joints are adjustable. Once you make these, you kind of are either roll with it or you make a different one. You like cut it and you try again. But again, it's just a matter of practice. So we have a pigeon that flaps, or whatever you're working on. This is my example for you all. But where would we stick the rods so that it's not just a paper doll similar to the one that I showed you, which is in a pile. But I will show you two ways to attach puppet rods. So I'm gonna do two ways. I'm gonna do one with a straw. I'm gonna choose blue. And this one's gonna go, I'm gonna put it right on the leg. If you wanna hide it, you could also put it on the tail. There's a lot of different options, but this one, when it's flat up against the puppet like that in the same axis, that I call that a lollipop. I'm gonna put it on the tail just so you can see it better. Where you just take a piece of tape and get it in there. You might want to put a couple of pieces of tape so it has more contact with the puppet and is stronger. And I'm not crazy about putting it on the tail because I feel like it looks like there's a stick coming out of the tail. But for now, that's fine. And that's me. I can hold the body and the wing still moves free. So our next job is to put something on the wing so that it moves. And I know I'm moving a little bit fast, but I also just want us to have time to answer questions, take a look at what we've been doing. I think around 7 o'clock we should take, that's about 5 minutes. This demo will be, the basics of it will be done, and people can take a quick break, go get more materials, and then think more about what they're gonna make for tonight. I wish we had like, you know, a week, because I feel like puppet workshops take time, but also I think the shorter amounts of time that you have, the more opportunity you have to really surprise yourself with something good because you were under pressure, right? Okay, just checking the chat. So this next bit, this has been a lollipop because so far I have a bird lollipop. That's my one rod technique. The second one is a perpendicular puppet, upright puppet, and you can combine them where one of them you're holding the main body lollipop style, but you're operating a different part of it with a perpendicular rod, where if you're looking at it from above, I have a little guy, if my computer will wake up, yeah, that looks like this, little Mothman from a show. But this is working in the way that the rod from above is sticking perpendicular. This is the screen. The rod is perpendicular to the puppet. It's not on the same plane as your puppet body. So that you can push it up against the screen. The rod, if it's going this way, actually doesn't cast very much of a shadow, so you don't have to worry about rods interfering with your design as much. You have a grill skewer, and I have put 2 pieces of tape, basically like a T, halfway up, if it wants to come off my finger, like that. Whoops, put it like that. See? And then you want to put the other one sandwich it, and then spread them apart like a flower. I call it a chicken foot because you have like a back claw and a front claw. I hope that looks pretty good to people, but essentially with your puppet, here's Madam Pigeon. I'm gonna put it on the wing. I'm gonna put it farther out, but you're gonna go, whoop, stick it right on. And this is really, I think I see this version more with live like busking performances, the perpendicular puppet. So if you hold it you have motion. So we officially have a bird that we can hold and a wing that we can hold, and they're both articulated into a whole bird puppet. And there's a lot more that we can do. For example, if my rod were lollipopped, like this on the wing also, instead of upright like that, notice that in order to move it, my arm has to go really far to flap this wing. But if I am perpendicular, now my hand only needs to, I only need to twist my fingers a little bit to convey a lot of motion, right? So that's a huge advantage of the upright way versus this way. And also, thinking about where you put your puppet rods, I would even have to do less motion if I put it right on where the joint is. I really don't have to twist it, or it becomes much, much easier where I'm closer to the pivot point. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this rod actually on the body here. And then I can try out. I think she's ready to try out. And this is just a very, very simple one gesture puppet. If I wanted to add extra things, I could. I feel like we won't have time to get to that. Oh, beautiful! I'm seeing. Oh, Courtney's got a bird. Does anyone have something completely different? People made birds. Wow. I love this. Okay. And then you can pull it away and then shadows grow larger. When you move it up and press it closer to your screen, the definition, let me know if you can't hear me, but the definition will be sharper the more contact your puppet has with the screen. And then if you pull it back, it gets lighter. Kind of looks like a dragon to me on this, from this angle. Has a pointy wing. I'm really grateful to Visionaries and Voices, Show of Hands Puppet Festival, Lizzie for pulling me in the first place, to be able to flexibly participate online.